Galaxy Council never called emergency meetings unless something impossible happened, and today, something impossible had happened. The humans were gone, not defeated, not captured, not destroyed. They were simply gone. One by one, the outer listening stations started reporting the same message: human channels, silent human fleets, missing human patrols, absent. At first, the alien commanders laughed and said maybe the humans are hiding again, maybe they are trying some new trick, because humans always loved tricks. They loved strange plans and surprise moves, but this time it felt different. This time, the silence was heavy like the dark between stars. The council hall filled with leaders from many worlds, tall ones, scaled ones, glowing ones, and those who spoke through metal translators. The high speaker of the council stood in the center, his voice shaking. Even though he tried to sound calm, he said the words every world feared to hear. Humans have retreated. The room went quiet, not because they were happy, but because they were scared. When humans fought, wars ended when humans arrived. Pirates vanished when humans stood in a line. Even the strongest empires hesitated. Humans did not need to threaten, they only needed to appear, and now they were not appearing anywhere. A young scout commander from the Veron fleet stepped forward and showed the recordings from the border relay station. It was a wide view of space where a human defense platform should have been, but it was not. There only empty orbit and drifting dust. The scout spoke fast, like he wanted to escape his own words. We found their platform. Dismantled, clean and careful, no burn marks, no battle signs, no bodies, no alarms. It looked like they packed up and left. The high speaker asked, "Are you sure it was theirs?" The scout nodded. "Yes, we found their emblem plate placed on the station floor like a final goodbye." Another leader from the ocean world of shells said, "Maybe humans moved to another sector. Maybe they are doing a secret mission." But then the intelligence chief of the council raised his hand and the hall fell silent again. He said, "We checked their capital world, Earth. We checked Luna bases. We checked the Mars shipyards. We checked the deep space gates. We checked every known human supply route. Nothing they left without noise, without warning, without any call for help." The leaders started arguing. Some yelled, some demanded a search, some demanded preparation for invasion, because many believed the only reason humans would leave is to strike later. But the intelligence chief said something that froze the whole even more. They did not block their signals. They did not hide their trails. They did not plant false paths. It is like they want us to know they left, but they do not want us to know where they went. The council could not understand that kind of act, because every other species used fear and power and control, but humans had always been different. Humans used patience. Humans used stubborn kindness and sharp logic. The oldest member of the council, the archivist of the old rings, slowly walked forward, his body thin and wrapped in memory cloth. He had seen more wars than anyone in the hall. He spoke in a soft voice that forced everyone to listen. He said, "I remember the first time humans joined our star roads. They were young and loud and reckless, but they had one strange habit. They always asked why. They always asked who started it. They always asked who is suffering the most, and they always walked into danger like they were drawn to it because they could not accept helpless voices in pain." The archivist paused and his eyes looked distant. He said, "If humans truly retreated, then it was not because of fear. It was because of decision, and that makes it more dangerous." The council hall lights dimmed as a new report arrived on the main screen. A trade city on the border of the Zarn Empire had sent a panic signal. Their defense net failed. Their patrol fleets never returned. But what shocked everyone was the message inside the signal. It was not a call for human help. It was a simple question: where are the humans? The high speaker stared at the screen and felt something cold move through his spine, because the message came from a world that once mocked humans, a world that called them emotional, weak, soft, and too moral. And now, even that world was asking for them. The high speaker ordered the council guard to lock the room, and he demanded a full scan. "Order across all sectors," he said. "No one leaves until we understand this. We cannot allow a power vacuum in the galaxy." The council cannot stand without humans keeping the edges calm. The words were shameful but true. Many leaders knew it but never said it out loud because pride is a heavy chain. The intelligence chief then presented the first deep analysis of the retreat, and the words sounded like a nightmare. He said human supply chains were shut down in sequence. First, the outer stations, then mid-stations, then inner shipyards, then the embassy stations, all closed in perfect order, no panic, no mistakes. It was a planned withdrawal, not a collapse, and more than that, every human military asset was removed, not stolen, not lost, removed. By humans, including old relic weapons that no other species could even touch safely. Yet, there was one detail that confused them even more. The humans left their emergency weapons caches behind, the caches designed to defend Earth if any empire tried to invade, and they left those caches unlocked as if they were saying, "We will not need these anymore." The hall erupted again. Some leaders shouted that this was a trap, some said it was arrogance, some said humans were about to ascend and abandon the lower species, but the archivist lifted his hand and demanded silence. He said, "Do not guess. You will only fill the dark with your own fear, and fear is not truth." The High Speaker agreed and asked for direct evidence, so the intelligence chief revealed the only direct evidence they had: a single recording from a human outpost in the Kestrel Drift, a station that should have been crowded with human crews, but now it was empty. The recording showed clean halls, lights still running, air still warm, like someone just left minutes ago. There were mugs on tables and boots near doors and a children drawing pinned on a wall. Then the camera moved into the command room, where a human message device was active. It played only once and then destroyed itself. The leaders leaned forward as the human voice filled the hall. It was calm and tired and strangely gentle. It said, "If you are hearing this, then we are already gone. Do not follow us, do not search for us, do not call for us. No wars forced us away, no enemy chased us away. We chose to step back. You have your own skies and your own choices. Now we will not be your shield anymore." Then the voice paused, like the speaker was choosing the next words carefully, and then it said, "We are done saving you." The recording ended and the device turned to ash. The hall stayed silent for a long moment, because those words hit harder than any threat. "Done saving you" meant humans believed they had been saving the galaxy all along, which meant they believed the galaxy had been depending on them like a child depends on a parent. And the worst part was that it was true. Humans had fought in wars they never started. Humans had delivered food in storms. Humans had rebuilt stations after pirate attacks. Humans had stopped dictators with no reward. Humans had taken blame for peace treaties, and humans had been hated for being the hand that holds the knife, even when the knife is used to cut chains. The High Speaker felt shame rise in his chest, but he had no time for feelings, because the galaxy does not pause for emotion. He stood taller and spoke like a commander, not a diplomat. He said, "We will not panic, we will not fall. We will find them. The Council will send fleets to every known human route. Every gate, every hidden corridor, every quiet zone. We will track their drives and follow their footprints." Then a leader from the frost world of Norik said, "If we do that, we may trigger them. What if they do not want to be found? What if this retreat is their warning?" The High Speaker replied, "We cannot allow humans to vanish, because if humans vanish, then every enemy that feared them will rise again. The pirates will come, the war empires will expand, the hunger fleets will raid our farms, and all of us will learn what happens when the strongest silent guardian walks away." The archivist nodded slowly, then whispered something like a prophecy. He said the galaxy feared human anger, but it forgot to fear human silence. A new alert came in. As he spoke, the border sensors detected a massive movement near the human-controlled neutral zone. The Council believed it might be a human return, but it was not. It was empty ships, drifting, hundreds of them, human ships in perfect condition, but With no crew, no AI, no life support, just empty shells moving like ghosts across the dark, the hall filled with panic. Voices in the high speaker finally felt the truth like a blade. Humans were not hiding, humans were not trapped, humans were not trapped, humans were not lost. Humans were sending a message to the galaxy by leaving these ships behind. They were showing we can leave anything, we can leave everything, we can vanish whenever we want, and you cannot stop us. The high speaker whispered to himself, "This is not retreat, this is something else," and then he raised his voice and gave the final order that would begin the greatest search in galactic history. "Send the Seekers now, find the humans, before they decide we are not worth returning to." The search for humans began immediately after the council order. But it did not feel like a hunt. It felt like walking into a shadow that refused to take shape. Fleets spread across known human routes. Scouts entered quiet sectors and deep probes, scanned old human trade lanes, yet everywhere they went, they found the same thing: absence, clean, planned, and deliberate. The first real discovery came from an outer colony once called Haven Reach, a human settlement built near a blue dwarf star. When alien scouts arrived, they expected ruins or signs of struggle, but instead they found the colony standing tall towers, intact roads, clean power grids, active water flowing, and lights glowing like the people had just stepped outside for a moment. Homes were furnished, beds, neatly made tables set with utensils, and on one table a warm drink still slowly cooling. The scout leader felt uneasy because destruction makes sense. Abandonment without damage does not. They walked through the streets, calling out, but only their own voices answered back. Then they found the message. It was not hidden. It was not protected. It was displayed in the center square, projected in simple human text. "We chose to leave this place unharmed. Do not claim it. Do not copy it, do not follow us." The alien team argued among themselves. Some wanted to secure the colony, others wanted to report immediately, but before they could decide, another signal arrived from a nearby human research outpost. This one was different. It was powered down except for a single chamber that opened automatically. When the scouts entered inside, they found data cores still active but locked behind human encryption, something no alien codebreaker had ever cracked. Then a hologram activated, showing a human woman dressed in civilian clothing, not armor, not command rank. She looked tired, but calm. She spoke slowly, like she wanted every word understood. She said, "This station holds knowledge that can change star systems and end wars. We are sealing it, not to hide power, but to remove temptation. You are not ready for what we learned, and neither were we." The message ended, and the core self-locked permanently. The scouts returned to their ships, shaken because humans had always shared technology slowly, carefully, but openly. Now they were choosing to withhold everything across the galaxy. Similar reports came in colony after colony, station after station. Every place humans once touched was left clean, functional, and empty. And always the same rule appeared in different forms: do not follow, do not claim, do not ask. The council grew restless. Some leaders accused humans of manipulation, others accused them of betrayal, but the intelligence chief noticed a pattern. Humans were not erasing themselves, they were leaving proof of restraint. They could have collapsed economies, destroyed gates, poisoned data nets, but they did none of it. They left the galaxy standing on its own feet, whether it was ready or not. Then came the discovery that changed the tone of the search entirely. An exploration drone sent into an abandoned human listening post near the Black Veils returned with footage of a single wall covered in marks. Not damage, not graffiti, but lines carved. Even repeated thousands of times. The translation: I worked for hours before understanding the pattern. It was a count of conflicts. Humans had intervened, in a count of lives lost despite their help, and a final count of how many times peace collapsed again after humans left. The numbers were massive, larger than any alien archive had ever recorded. At the bottom of the wall were words carved deeper than the rest. "We cannot want peace more than you do." When this evidence reached the council hall, the arguments stopped because for the first time, the galaxy was forced to look at itself. Humans had not been fighting for conquest, they had been fighting because no one else would stand up long enough to hold peace together. A junior analyst spoke quietly, almost afraid to be heard. She said, "Humans may have realized that saving us was stopping us from learning the cost of our own choices." Her words spread like fire through the hall because they felt true and uncomfortable. Then a crisis erupted in the western sectors. A pirate armada, long kept in check by human patrols, launched raids across 3 trade routes in one cycle. Several worlds fell the victims, sent emergency calls to the council begging for human intervention. But none came, only silence. Panic turned into anger. Some worlds cursed humans, others demanded the council force them back. But how do you force a species that vanished by choice? Fleets sent to defend the routes suffered heavy losses because they were used to fighting beside humans, relying on human tactics, human prediction, human sacrifice. Without that shield, their weaknesses were exposed. Battle after battle proved the same truth. The galaxy had leaned on humans for too long. During one failed defense, an alien commander captured a pirate officer and demanded to know how they dared move so freely. The pirate laughed and said, "The humans left us their fear. They showed us how fragile you are without them." That statement echoed across news networks, and unrest spread among civilian populations. Some began questioning their leaders, others began hoarding resources, and some began calling humans traitors. Yet among the noise, a single strange broadcast appeared on the Galactic Open channel. It was not traced to any known transmitter, and did not carry a human signature. But the voice was unmistakably human, calm, clear, and firm. It said, "We are watching, not to judge, but to learn what you do when no one is saving you anymore." The message ended without threat, without promise, but its impact was heavy. Worlds realized humans had not cut all eyes, they had only removed their hands. The high speaker felt the pressure of centuries of dependence collapsing into one moment. He ordered a new directive: all civilizations must defend their own borders. No human tactics, no human reliance. But the order came too late. Habits are hard to break, and discipline harder to build overnight. Another report arrived from an ancient battlefield where humans once ended a war between 2 empires. The site had been quiet for decades. Now new ships gathered old enemies, testing each other again, and on the battlefield stood a human monument, untouched by time, a simple structure with one line carved into it: "Never again" means never again for everyone, not just today. The leaders, staring at the image, finally understood the weight of human exhaustion. Humans had carried the galaxy on their backs, and when they finally stepped away, the galaxy began to feel its own weight for the first time. As the council debated what to do next, a final sealed report reached the high speaker. Alone marked human origin and depriority. Inside was a simple map, not of where humans went, but of where they would not return. The marked zones were worlds that continued war, exploitation, and blind reliance. At the bottom of the report were words that chilled him more than any threat: "We did not retreat to escape responsibility, we retreated to return responsibility." And as the high speaker looked at the map, he realized with dread that many of the brightest worlds of the galaxy were already fading from it. As the galaxy continued to shake under the weight of human absence, the council finally stopped asking where the humans went and began asking why they left, because survival now depended on understanding that reason. The archivist of the old rings unlocked deeper memory vaults, once sealed even for most council leaders, and what emerged from those archives changed how the galaxy saw its own history. The records showed thousands of conflicts across centuries, And beside each conflict was the same quiet mark: human intervention, not conquest, not control, but presence. Humans entered wars that were not theirs. They stood between fleets that hated each other, they absorbed fire meant for others, and they rebuilt cities that were never grateful. For long at first the records looked heroic and inspiring, but as the archivists scrolled deeper, a pattern formed. The same worlds appeared again and again, the same names, the same rival species, the same broken treaties. Humans returned to places they had already saved, sometimes within a single generation, sometimes within months. Every return came with losses not counted in public ledgers, because humans never demanded memorials for wars. They did not start mission logs, became shorter and colder over time. Early entries spoke of hope and partnership, later entries spoke of delays and fatigue, and finally they spoke only of necessity. A council strategist noticed something disturbing. Humans were never listed as victors, they were listed as stabilizers, because humans never stayed to rule. They stayed just long enough to stop collapse, then left, trusting others to carry peace forward, but peace kept falling apart. While the council studied these records, the galaxy outside continued to bleed. Pirate fleets surged into sectors once guarded by human patrols. Border wars reignited relief. Convoys were attacked because no one feared consequences anymore. In worlds that once mocked human morality, now begged for human protection. But the channels stayed silent. On the frontier world of Alara, a famine broke out when trade routes failed. The Planetary Council argued for days instead of acting, because in the past, humans would arrive and fix logistics and food distribution. Now no one came, and by the time the local leaders agreed on a plan, millions had already died. The news spread fast, and with it came anger, not only at the council, but at humans for leaving. Yet buried under that anger was a deeper fear, the fear of standing alone for the first time. A breakthrough came from an unexpected place, an abandoned human medical ark. Drifting near a dead star, scouts boarded it expecting empty halls, but instead found a memory chamber filled with human civilian recordings. Not soldiers, not commanders, but families, doctors, engineers, and children. The recordings, activated automatically, voices filled the ship, telling stories of constant relocation, of growing up in war zones that were not human, of birthdays missed because a ceasefire collapsed, of parents who never returned from peacekeeping missions. One voice said, "My mother died, stopping a war between people who never learned why they were fighting." Another said, "We kept going because someone had to, but it feels like we are the only ones paying the price." The scout crew listening to these voices felt something they had never associated with humans: vulnerability. The galaxy had seen humans as endless and strong, but these recordings showed exhaustion, the kind that builds slowly until even the strongest will breaks back. In the council hall, debate erupted. Some leaders claimed humans were emotionally weak, others argued that the galaxy had exploited human conscience. Then a junior analyst spoke quietly but firmly. She said, "Humans were not weak, they were consistent, and consistency without support becomes sacrifice without end." Her words spread across the chamber because they explained everything. Humans did not leave in anger, they left in self-preservation. The past and present collided when intelligence confirmed pirates were using advanced tactics once taught by humans during joint defense programs. Humans had trained others to protect themselves, but those lessons were ignored when humans were always there to lead. Now those same tactics empowered chaos. During one captured transmission, a pirate commander laughed and said, "Humans warned us. They said, 'Learn or you will bleed later.' We just did not think later would come so soon." That message echoed across news networks, and panic grew. Worlds realized humans had given them the tools, but not the will, and now the cost of that failure was due as the galaxy burned a human. Coded broadcast appeared again across open channels. calm and unmistakable. We are not absent, we are restrained, we are not punishing, we are observing what you choose. When you are no longer carried, the message ended without emotion, but its meaning was clear. Humans were testing the galaxy not with war but with silence. The Council attempted to respond with unity orders, but unity built on dependence collapsed quickly. Fleets argued over command. Relief missions failed due to distrust, and negotiations broke down because no human mediator stood between ancient rivals and the world of Kara. Two species once bound by a human-enforced treaty prepared for war again. The first shots fired without hesitation, proving peace had been borrowed, not owned. When reports of the conflict reached the Council, a sealed archive unlocked itself, triggered by conditions humans had set long ago. Inside was a doctrine written in simple language. The archivist read it aloud. The threshold doctrine, it stated, when protection becomes dependence, intervention becomes harm. When peace is maintained by one, it is not peace, it is delay. The protected must face consequence or they will never change. The document ended with a line that silenced the chamber. Humanity will retreat not to escape responsibility but to return it. The weight of those words settled heavily, because the galaxy could no longer deny the truth. Humans had not abandoned morality. They had chosen a harder form of it, one that forced others to grow or fall. Another report arrived moments later, showing a human monument on an ancient battlefield untouched by time. Enemies now gathering again around it. The monument bore a single sentence: never again means never again for everyone. Not just today. The irony was sharp. The galaxy had relied on humans to enforce lessons it never learned itself. As systems collapsed and worlds struggled, the realization became unavoidable. Humans had carried the galaxy for so long that the galaxy forgot how to stand now. Standing was painful and falling was deadly. The Council finally understood the retreat was not sudden. It was the final step of a long warning. Humans had prepared them, shared knowledge, built defenses, trained fleets, and slowly stepped back. But every time humans returned to fix things, they erased the lesson. And now there would be no fixing, only consequence. As the archivist closed the vaults, he spoke softly, but every word carried fear. If the galaxy survives this, it will grow stronger. But if it fails, humans will not return as saviors. They will return as rebuilders. And rebuilders do not ask permission. That thought haunted every leader because it meant the future of all species now depended not on human strength but on their own. And for the first time in history, the galaxy truly understood what it meant to live without humans holding the line. When the first major attack came after the human retreat, the galaxy was not ready, even though warnings had arrived from every direction. The Council believed smaller forces could handle it because they always had before, under the shadow of human response. But this time the shadow was gone, and reality moved fast. A massive pirate coalition formed from groups that once hid at the edges of human patrol space. They did not fear retaliation anymore. They did not whisper or raid quietly. They attacked openly and together. Their target was the Hellion trade spine, a vital route that fed dozens of inner worlds with food, medicine, and energy. The spine had never fallen before because humans always watched it, even when they claimed neutrality. Council fleets rushed to defend it, confident in numbers but uncertain in command, because for the first time there was no human strategist coordinating movements, no human fleet anchoring the line, no human voice predicting enemy behavior. The battle began. In chaos, ships moved without cohesion, orders conflicted, leaders argued mid-engagement, and pirates exploited every gap like they had been waiting for this exact weakness, because the pirates had studied human absence longer than anyone else. The first defense line broke within minutes, not because the defenders lacked courage, but because they lacked unity and discipline traits Humans once enforced without asking permission. As stations fell, distress calls flooded the council channels. Voices begged for human help. Some cried, some threatened, some promised alliances, but there was no answer, only silence colder than space itself. A council commander watching the collapse whispered, "They will come, they always come," but deep down he already knew they would not. The pirates advanced using tactics that felt familiar: flanking maneuvers, precision strikes, disabling engines, before destroying hulls, and coordinated feints that split defending forces apart. An analyst watching the battlefields realized with horror these were human tactics lessons humans had taught the galaxy during joint defense programs, now turned against it. Humans had once said, "Learn this, so you will not need us later." But later had arrived, and the lesson had been ignored. The trade spine fell within a single cycle. Billions lost access to supplies. Panic spread across dependent worlds. Riots broke out, governments collapsed, and refugee fleets fled inward, overwhelming systems that were already strained. The council attempted to regroup, but every decision came too late because reaction had replaced preparation. In the absence of humans, the galaxy discovered it had forgotten how to think ahead. Then something happened that shattered the last illusion of hope. An emergency beacon activated from a former human ally world, a planet humans had saved twice in the past and rebuilt after a civil war. The beacon message was simple: "Help us. Pirates are landing." The council prepared a response fleet, and once again someone asked, "Should we try the human channels one last time?" The high speaker hesitated, then nodded because pride was useless. Now the message was sent across every known human frequency, a plea stripped of politics, stripped of ego. It said, "We cannot stop this without you." The reply came not from a fleet, not from a leader, but from a single narrow-band transmission that bypassed all filters. A human voice, calm, steady, and unmistakably tired. It said, "We warned you to prepare. We warned you to stand together. We warned you that we would not always be there. We are not coming." The transmission ended and the beacon world fell hours later. Images of the invasion spread across the galaxy, and something changed, not just fear but understanding. Humans were not cruel, they were consistent. They had drawn a line and refused to cross it, even when crossing it would save lives, because crossing it would erase the lesson again. During the aftermath, pirate leaders broadcast openly mocking the council. One of them declared, "Humans left you weak. They carried your wars for you, and now you cannot even protect your own children." His words burned deeper than weapons because they were true. The council ordered emergency conscription across multiple species, but coordination failed again. Centuries of relying on humans had hollowed command structures. Leaders were used to deferring final decisions to human advisors. Now those advisors were gone, and every choice became a debate, while enemies moved with purpose. On the world of Norik, a defensive stand collapsed when 3 allied fleets argued over formation instead of acting. The pirates broke through and enslaved entire cities. Survivors later said they waited for human ships until the sky burned and still none came. Despair began turning into resentment. Some worlds accused humans of betrayal, others accused the council of weakness. Some called for the use of forbidden weapons that humans once prevented from being deployed. But even as desperation rose, another pattern emerged. Worlds that had once resisted human guidance and built their own defense doctrines fared better. Small coalitions that trained independently, adapted quickly, and repelled pirate forces without waiting for orders. These successes were rare but powerful proof that survival without humans was possible, but only with effort, discipline, and sacrifice, traits long outsourced to humanity. The archivist observed this pattern and spoke quietly to the high speaker. He said, "Humans did not abandon us. They removed the safety net to reveal who could climb and who would fall." The words haunted the council because more worlds were falling than climbing. Then a final shock arrived. A massive pirate Armada moved toward the Central Council worlds, a move that would have been unthinkable before human retreat because it would have triggered immediate human response. Now the Armada advanced unchallenged, the Council prepared for a last stand, knowing defeat was likely as fleets gathered. Sensors detected something strange ahead of the pirate Armada, thousands of empty human ships, drifting in perfect formation, silent, powerless, and unmanned ghosts of past strength. The pirates hesitated, confused. Scans confirmed, no life, no weapons, no AI, just hulls and engines locked in passive mode. Then a message played across all channels originating from the drifting ships. A human-recorded signal. It said, "This is what we leave behind, power without guidance. Strength without command, this is what you relied on, now face it, without us." The pirate Armada broke formation in panic. Some ships collided, others retreated, fearing a trap that never came. The human ships did nothing, they simply drifted. Everyone that humans could abandon entire fleets, without hesitation. The psychological impact was devastating. The pirates withdrew, not because of force, but because of fear of what humans might still choose to do. The Council worlds were spared, not by human action, but by human restraint, and that truth cut deeper than rescue ever could. In the aftermath, survivors across the galaxy whispered the same realization. Humans were not gone, they were present in absence, teaching through consequence. Instead of protection, the trade spine remained broken. Millions suffered, and many worlds would never recover. But for the first time, some leaders stopped asking when will humans return and started asking how do we survive without them. And that shift marked the true beginning of the new age, because the galaxy had finally learned that silence could be more powerful than war. And the hardest lesson of all was that humans had trusted the galaxy enough to let it fail. And that trust was the most frightening weapon humanity ever used. The galaxy did not recover from the fall of the trade spine. It adapted slowly, painfully, and unevenly. Worlds that survived did so by abandoning old habits of waiting for rescue, and those that failed became silent lights on the star maps. During this fragile transition, a discovery was made that shifted fear into something far deeper. A deep sector exploration team from the Council was dispatched beyond known lanes, into a region humans once marked as restricted but never explained. That zone was called the Quiet Reach, a place where human patrols once redirected all traffic without threat or violence. Ships entering the region reported nothing unusual until now, when the retreat made every mystery urgent. The team consisted of scouts, scientists, and one archivist observer. They expected ruins or hidden fleets, but what they found challenged every assumption. At the heart of the Quiet Reach floated a structure so vast it bent sensor readings, a human megastructure built from dark alloy and layered fields, invisible from most angles. It did not emit weapon signals or power surges, yet it dominated the space around it like a silent mountain. The structure was not moving, not hiding, and not defending itself. It simply existed, as if it had always been there, waiting to be noticed. Now that humans were gone, the scouts circled carefully, expecting automated defenses, but none. Activated docking ports opened without resistance. Corridors lit up as the team entered, and gravity stabilized. The interior was clean, warm, and calm, not military, not threatening, more like a sanctuary. The deeper they moved, the more they realized this place was not built for war, it was built for watching. Walls displayed live feeds from across the galaxy, trade routes, battle zones, refugee pads, famine worlds, political chambers, everything the humans were watching, everything but interfering, nowhere. The archivist felt unease, because observation without action requires a level of restraint few species possess. At the center of the structure the team reached a chamber filled with human symbols and language. A massive display activated, showing a simple phrase: Project Retreat Status Ongoing. The lead scientist demanded answers, and the SI he assumed you already know how to act as good bait. I'll be back as good bait. I'll be back soon. A chamber filled with human symbols and language. A chamber filled with human symbols and language. A massive display activated, showing a simple phrase: Project Retreat. Status ongoing. The lead scientist demanded answers, and the SIA Struction responded not with weapons but with a voice, artificial yet unmistakably human in tone. Welcome, observers. You have reached a human continuity station designed to preserve balance without enforcing. The AI explained that humans had built these stations over centuries not to control the galaxy but to ensure they would never be forced to again. Humans had learned that power invites dependence, and dependence invites decay, so they chose preparation over domination. The AI showed records of planning dating back generations. Long before the retreat, human thinkers had debated the cost of endless intervention and the danger of becoming the sole pillar holding civilization upright. They predicted that if humans continued saving everyone, no one else would ever learn to stand. Then the pillar would break and everything would fall at once, so humans chose to step away before collapse forced them to. The revelation stunned the council team because it meant the retreat was not sudden or emotionally, was measured, patient, and terrifyingly logical. The AI continued, humans did not abandon the galaxy. We removed ourselves from the center of its gravity. You must now orbit each other without us. The team asked about the future weather. Humans plan to return, and the AI paused before answering. Return is conditional, not guaranteed. The word sent a chill through the chamber. The conditions were not about obedience or loyalty, but about growth, unity, and self-responsibility metrics tracked across civilizations. The AI showed a map of the galaxy. Some regions glowed dim, others flickered, some were dark entirely. The glowing ones were worlds adapting, cooperating, and defending themselves. The dark ones were worlds still waiting, still demanding, still fighting among themselves. Humans were watching the difference quietly. Then the AI delivered the sentence that none of them were prepared to hear. If the majority fails these conditions, humans will not intervene. They will rebuild after collapse. Rebuilding is not rescue. The archivist realized then that this station was not a fortress. It was a scale, weighing the worth of intervention itself. The team tried to transmit their findings, but the station restricted outgoing data, allowing only summary reports, not raw footage. The message sent to the council described the existence of the station but not its full depth, because humans did not want panic or obsession. They wanted the galaxy to change, not to chase them. As the team prepared to leave, the AI activated one final display, showing a human figure standing before a shattered star map. The voice spoke. Again, humanity learned that silence can teach what force never could. This is not punishment, this is trust. The team departed, shaken, carrying knowledge heavier than any weapon. When the council received the report, reactions were divided. Some leaders accused humans of playing gods. Others felt shame for forcing humans into that role in the first place. The high speaker remained silent, reading the summary again and again. Because one truth stood out: humans had not hidden their power. They had hidden their intention, and intention was more dangerous. The galaxy was being judged, not by human anger, but by human patience. As word of the continuity station spread, rumors twisted it. Some claimed humans were planning extermination. Others claimed ascension cult movements formed, waiting for human return or punishment. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. Alliances formed without human pressure. Border disputes paused as leaders realized cooperation was now the only defense. Supply routes were rebuilt. Jointly defense doctrines were rewritten. Shared command structures emerged. Slowly, painfully, but real. These changes were not universal, but they were enough to register on the station. Metrics' faint lights began to brighten on the map, unseen by those fighting for survival but recorded quietly by human systems. The pirates. Noticed this shift to their advantage came from chaos and unity, threatened that. Advantage raids became riskier resistance, stronger losses heavier, yet the pirates adapted, pushing harder, testing whether the galaxy could truly hold the line without human steel. As pressure increased, the galaxy faced its greatest test, a coordinated, multi-front assault planned to shatter the new alliances before they solidified. When this intelligence reached the Council, fear returned because even united they were weaker than before, and once again the unspoken question rose. Would humans step in? But no signal came, no warning, no encouragement, only silence. The archivist finally understood the full weight of the retreat humans were forcing the galaxy to answer a question it had avoided for centuries. Are you worth saving if you cannot save yourselves? And as fleets prepared for the coming storm, the knowledge of the hidden human stations hung over every decision like a silent witness recording. Not failure or success, but growth. And for the first time, the galaxy realized that humanity's greatest power was not its weapons or fleets, but its willingness to let go and trust others to either rise or fall on their own choices. When the multi-front assault finally began, the galaxy felt its weight instantly, because this was not a random pirate raid, it was a calculated strike designed to break the new alliances before they could stand on their own. Fleets moved from 3 directions, cutting supply lines, attacking command nodes, and spreading fear faster than ships could travel. The Council worlds braced for collapse again. Leaders prepared evacuation plans, expecting the same ending they had seen too many times before. But something was different this time. There was no waiting for human arrival, no false hope of rescue. Instead, commands were issued. Quickly, shared fleets moved without arguing, and smaller worlds followed joint plans instead of selfish ones. The battles were brutal and losses were heavy, but for the first time the galaxy fought as a single body, not a collection of fragments, and slowly, painfully, the assault began to slow. Pirate forces met resistance. They did not expect ambushes, coordinated counter-strikes, and defenders who did not break when things went wrong because there was no one else to blame or wait for. In the middle of this chaos, a strange signal appeared across secure channels, not public, not broadcast, but delivered directly to the highest leadership nodes of the Council and major alliances. The signal carried no threat, no warning, and no coordinates. It carried a single invitation request: acknowledged, prepare for dialogue. The message origin was masked, but every analyst knew immediately it was human. After weeks of silence that had taught through suffering, the humans were finally choosing to speak. Not to save, but to explain. A secure channel opened, and a human figure appeared, not in uniform, not behind flags, just a single calm presence, seated in a simple environment. His voice carried no anger, only clarity. He introduced himself as a continuity commander, a role unfamiliar to the galaxy because humans had never shared it. Before he spoke slowly, using simple words so no translation errors could soften or sharpen the meaning, he said, "We are not here to stop your war. You already chose to fight it. We are here to tell you why we stepped away and what happens next." The leaders demanded answers. Some accused him of cruelty, others of arrogance, but he did not interrupt them. He waited until the noise burned itself out, and then he spoke again. "Humans spent generations protecting this galaxy, not because we owned it, but because we believed it could be better. We stood between enemies because we believed peace was worth pain, but pain without learning becomes waste." The commander showed records not of battles, but of meetings, where humans warned leaders to prepare to stand alone. Warnings ignored because humans always stayed. He showed moments where humans absorbed blame so treaties could survive, and moments where humans were hated for enforcing peace because peace limited ambition. He showed the cost to human society, families, scattered cultures. Paused progress delayed because every crisis pulled them back outward. He said we reached a point where saving you was destroying us and destroying you at the same time. The words landed heavily because they carried no pride, only exhaustion. Then came the hardest truth humans learned, that protection without limit teaches dependence, and dependence kills growth. We saw futures where we stayed forever and everything collapsed the moment we fell, so we chose to fall back while we still could. The leaders asked what the continuity stations were, and the commander confirmed their existence, but rejected the idea that they were courts or weapons. They are mirrors, he said. They show us who you become when no one is holding you up, he exclaimed. That humans were tracking cooperation, not obedience, courage, not success, and adaptation, not victory. Some worlds failed and would continue to fail. Others struggled and grew. Those were the ones that mattered. Then a leader asked the question everyone feared: if we fail, what will you do? The commander did not answer immediately, and that pause was worse than any threat. When he finally spoke, his words were simple: if the galaxy collapses, we will return, not as defenders, but as builders and builders. Do not preserve old systems. They replace them. He explained that rebuilding meant removing broken powers, redrawing borders, and enforcing rules without debate, because chaos cannot be negotiated with. That future was not punishment, it was cleanup. And no one would like it. The silence after that answer was absolute, because the galaxy finally understood that human restraint was a gift and human return could be a sentence. Then the commander addressed the present battles. He said, you are fighting now without us, and that is correct. We will not intervene, but know this: we are watching, not to judge failure, but to recognize growth. He ended the message with a final statement that echoed across every command hall. You wanted freedom from our influence, now you have it. Prove you deserve it. The channel closed, and once again humans were silent, but this silence felt different. It was no longer abandonment, it was expectation. The battles continued, and the cost was high, but coordination held. Pirate fleets began to fracture as resistance hardened and unity removed their advantage. Some pirate leaders surrendered, others fled, and some fought until destroyed, but the assault failed, not completely, not cleanly, but enough the galaxy survived. The test scarred but standing. When reports reached the continuity station, unseen by the galaxy, faint lights on the human map brightened several regions, crossed thresholds marking cooperation under pressure. The humans did not celebrate, they recorded and waited, because growth is proven over time, not moments. In the aftermath, leaders across the galaxy began rewriting doctrines, teaching self-defense, shared responsibility, and consequence. Children were taught history without human rescue stories. Commanders trained without human manuals, and diplomats negotiated, knowing no one would enforce their promises but themselves. Fear still existed. Suffering still existed, but dependence began to fade, and in that space, something new formed: pride. Without arrogance, strength, without cruelty. The archivist later wrote that this was the moment the galaxy stopped being protected and started being alive, and somewhere beyond the quiet reach, humans watched in silence, not ready to return, not eager to rule, but prepared to accept whatever choice the galaxy made, because the hardest lesson humanity ever taught was not how to fight, but how to stand alone. The galaxy did not celebrate after surviving the Great Assault, because survival no longer felt like victory. It felt like a pause before judgment. Worlds were alive, but wounded. Trade routes were thin, fleets were damaged, and trust was fragile. Yet something fundamental had changed. Leaders no longer asked when humans would return, they asked what they must become if humans never did that. Question reshaped decisions across systems. Alliances that once existed only on paper began sharing food, ships, and defense patrols, not because of treaties, but because failure had become too expensive to repeat. Children were taught not stories of heroic rescues, but lessons about preparation, discipline, and consequence. And still, despite all this effort, the galaxy stood on the edge because some worlds refused to change. They continued old wars, hoarded resources, and waited, believing humans would break their silence at the last moment and save them as they always had. Then the final collapse began. Not with explosions, but with hunger markets. Failed supply chains snapped, and entire regions dimmed on the star maps. Refugee fleets poured into stable systems, begging for entry, but space was limited and choices were brutal. Some were welcomed, others were turned away, not out of cruelty but necessity. And for the first time, the galaxy understood a truth humans had lived with alone for centuries. Not everyone can be saved without losing everything. During this dark moment, the sky itself changed. Across dozens of system sensors detected movement, not hostile, not hidden, but vast human fleets emerging from deep space. Their ships were different from before, less armed, more modular, built for construction, not war. Their arrival sent shock through every civilization because humanity had returned without warning, without threat, without explanation. Council channels exploded with panic and hope mixed together, but the human fleets did not approach battle zones or political centers. They stopped at a distance, like observers choosing where to step next. A transmission opened, and the continuity commander appeared once more, his voice calm, older, steady. He did not accuse or threaten. He said, "The galaxy has reached the point we prepared for. You have suffered enough to learn, and enough to choose. Some of you chose unity, some chose pride. We will not save what refused to grow, but we will not abandon what tried." The words cut deeper than any weapon, because they carried judgment without anger. The commander exclaimed that humanity was returning, not as soldiers, not as rulers, but as builders and teachers. Humans would not fight wars, enforce borders, or protect leaders from consequences. They would help rebuild only what could stand. Without them, this return would be limited, deliberate, and conditional. And then came the twist that shattered old thinking. He said humans would not rebuild governments or empires. They would rebuild foundations: food, energy, education, communication. Systems that rewarded cooperation and punished exploitation automatically. No leaders could override them. No fleets could intimidate them. These systems would either work for everyone or collapse, entirely taking those who abused them with it. The Council realized then that humanity was not restoring order. They were redesigning reality in a way that made old power games useless. Human ships moved into selected systems devastated by famine and collapse. Engineers stabilized atmospheres, repaired farms, restored water networks. Doctors treated populations without asking for loyalty. Teachers trained local minds to maintain everything themselves. And when stability returned, humans left again, quietly, leaving behind no garrisons, no flags, only responsibility. Worlds that resisted these changes were bypassed completely, their plea ignored, and slowly, painfully, they collapsed into silence. This selective help angered many. Some called humans cruel, some called them gods, but those who received help understood the truth. Humans were not choosing favorites, they were choosing effort. Then another twist emerged. Human fleets did not respond to praise or gratitude. They refused monuments and titles, and erased their own records from local history. Net saying, "Remember the work, not us." This confused cultures that built identity around heroes, but it forced focus away from saviors and toward systems and shared effort. The most powerful moment came when a former war empire once feared across half the galaxy requested no weapons, no alliances, no protection, but guidance. They asked how to exist without becoming monsters. The human response was simple: build limits you cannot break, and accept punishment when you do. No exception, no pride. That empire changed, and others followed, not because humans forced them, but because survival demanded it. Over time, borders, soft, not erased but respected conflicts. Still happened, but they ended faster, because no one expected an outside force to pause consequences. Children grew up knowing that silence could be louder than threats, and that rescue was never guaranteed. The archivist later wrote that humanity returned not to rule, but to correct a mistake they once made, carrying too much for too long, and when the rebuilding phase ended, human fleets withdrew again. Not vanishing, but stepping back into watchful distance, and the final message recorded across the stars said, "No threats, no war. We stepped back so you could step forward." And the galaxy finally understood that humanity's greatest power was not its fleets or weapons, but the courage to let others fail, grow, and choose their own future.